Welcome to My True Health podcast. I'm Michelle Scarlett, a board certified functional medicine practitioner, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, certified personal trainer, and women's health coach. I'm here to help women achieve true health by deep diving into the symptoms that often go ignored or dismissed. Join me and other experts in the women's health space as we uncover the truth around all things women's health. Hello, friends. Before we dive into today's episode, this is your friendly reminder to rate and review my podcast so more women like you get access to it. We know how important it is to empower and educate women to be advocates for their own health because the information we share on this podcast is not the information we're taught by our doctors.
Shannon Salgi is a functional nutritionist, metabolism expert, and CEO of the Wellness Paradigm. With over a decade of experience in health coaching, she helps women 30 plus heal their metabolisms, hormones, and gut health through personalized holistic approaches. After overcoming her own health challenges, Shannon became passionate about empowering women to take control of their wellness journey, using functional lab testing, nutrition, fitness, and the nervous system support to create lasting change. Shannon's mission is to help women feel confident, energized, and vibrant in their bodies. That's a beautiful mission, Shannon. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great.
Good. Wow. So, first of all, thanks for coming on my show today. And I really am interested to know before we dive into what we're going to talk about, you said you've overcome some health challenges. Can you give us a snippet of that?
Yeah, I mean, we can dive as much as you want into this, but very long story short, I was in the normal, like, I hate to say normal, but normal health and fitness field, manager at a gym, doing really well. I got into bodybuilding. Everything seemed to be hunky-dory. I won a bodybuilding show, and within a few weeks, my body became just completely crippled. And riddled with autoimmune disease. I wasn't able to walk. I walked with a cane. I was on like 5 to 6 anti-inflammatories a day just to be able to function.
So wait a
um,
minute. Sorry. I just got to pause you there. You did a bodybuilding show, and for those who aren't sure exactly what that means, like you dieted down big
mhm,
time to get to your leanest state.
mhm.
And how long after did you start to feel this way?
Pretty rapidly. Things went downhill within about 3 to 4 weeks after the show. Um,
Wow.
and, I think one thing we can always dive into, but a lot of women think that when they're at the leanest, you look at these people, especially on social media, they're ripped, they look like they're super healthy. And I was dismissed and gaslit so many times by doctors because I looked good on the outside. I was a professional
Right.
dancer in my earlier days too. So, like, I was flexible, I was fit, I was healthy on the outside, and I was ravaged with inflammation internally. And so it didn't take long, after the bodybuilding show, and I didn't reverse really properly either. It just triggered my immune system to just start attacking me
Wow.
very badly. So, and that started my journey into more of the holistic space instead of just traditional, macros and weightlifting, which got me to where I was, but wasn't going to get me to where I needed to be later. So,
Wow. Wow. Okay, so what were some of the symptoms that you had after the bodybuilding show that really like took you down?
so I have an autoimmune disease called ankylosing spondylitis.
Okay.
Sounds like a
Did you
dinosaur.
know this going in?
I did
Okay.
actually. I know a lot of people like aren't familiar when their body starts attacking itself. They're like, what's going on? I actually was tested for this gene marker when I was 13 years old because, as I said, I was a professional dancer, but I was having a lot of pain and I just kind of pushed through it. I mean, I danced with a tear in my back. Like, you just, as professional athlete, you just kind of like
Just do it.
go.
Yeah.
And my cousin, my great uncle, and great cousin, I guess, both had it and were wheelchair bound. Um, and so my family knew about it. And I had a bout of what's called a uveitis, or I thought it was uveitis, which is inflammation of my eye. It turned out it was a contact issue, but that with the back pain prompted my mom to be like, oh no, I think this is what you have. I got tested for the gene marker and I didn't, have, it's called
Wow.
HL7. It doesn't mean you're going to get it. But the problem is it's a progressive disease. So like, they're not going to put you on any medication or anything until it gets bad enough. And that's, we can talk about this all day. The problem with the traditional medical system is until it gets bad enough, we can't do anything for you.
Right.
And so what bad enough meant in my case was fusion of my sacroiliac joint or fusion of my spine. And so, when it got so bad, that's when they can medicate you. Now, granted, I didn't want to be on medication, especially at 13, but everyone told me I was just overtraining. I was just stopped working out so much, which is
Right.
probably too. Like, I mean, I was dancing at 13 years old about 30 hours a week. I was on a professional company. It was, I wish somebody would have told me earlier on. Had I known what I know now, I'm sure you feel this way. Like, my skin could have been clear. I was on antibiotics every day of my life for 8 years, like for skin issues. Like, my skin could have been clear, my joint pain could have been better, my brain fog, my periods, like everything could have been better by simple swaps.
Yeah.
Had I known what I know now, and I could have avoided, this is my pain is my purpose. So it all happened in the way it was, meant to be. Um, but yeah, things went downhill pretty quick.
So do you think that the stress of preparing for a bodybuilding show was like the thing that just like triggered the flare in your autoimmune disease?
Yes, 100%. Because what people don't realize, and I'm sure if they listen to your podcast or they, know things about kind of nutrition, is there's periodization of nutrition we should be going through, right? We shouldn't always be in a deficit. We shouldn't always be, bulking, whatever that looks like. You traditionally go, from maintenance to a cut to a reverse diet. You want to go into a bulk, cool. But I had been quotation dieting and overtraining for a long time, but that's all I knew. So I didn't
I
really
feel
know
like
any.
I feel like that's most women. Like they
Yeah.
might not be like, with it in their mind a goal to do a bodybuilding show, but like
Mhm.
every woman that I work with undereats because they think they should be eating 1,200 calories a day in order to lose weight, but they've been doing that since they were 16.
Yes.
And then on top of it, the huge CrossFit trend that has come up over the last 15 years, um, this like HIIT style training, like we're just like throwing stress at our body.
Oh yes, I could go on and on about Orange Theory and F45.
Agreed.
And it's not that they don't have their time and place, but for so many women dealing with hormone-based imbalances, which is God, it just feels like everybody nowadays, it's not necessarily advantageous until you start healing, and then we can maybe go
Right.
back into the kind of work once you're more metabolically safe.
Right. And I
But
also kind of think you could like periodize your workouts the same way that you would your nutrition. Like,
Mhm.
maybe if you're in a cut for 6 weeks, okay, maybe you can go a little bit more intense as long as you're metabolically healthy. But then you have to dial back. When you
Yeah.
start reverse dieting again, think about like the way you have to nurture your body. So maybe it becomes very much a traditional strength training workout for 6 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Focus on lifting, focus on slowly moving, focus on healing and resting versus like as many calories as possible.
Oh, healing and resting, dude, because most people that are doing this are very high achieving women who think that if I do less, it's not going to be good. I'm going to feel guilty. I'm going to gain weight. I'm being lazy. And that's driving a lot of autoimmune issues in the first place,
Yeah,
and it's not until, again, things get bad and then you spend so much more time, energy, money reversing the issue.
right.
But honestly, I get it, because if you would have told me what I know now, I don't know if I would have listened. I was young. I knew
Sure.
things were going south. I wanted ripped abs.
Sure.
At the time I was also performing on stage in literally a bikini, and so, it's hard because sometimes, like I know for me, I had to go through the trauma to realize, like, okay, so I can preach to the world, like, don't have to feel like this.
Yeah,
Um,
I kind of feel the same. You and I align so much. Like, I used to own a gym. For 13 years, I owned a gym. It was a personal training studio. And if you had told me in 2015 that, you know, 7 years later, I would have been struggling to sleep and struggling with weight gain and struggling with digestive issues, and that it all was interconnected to the amount I was dieting and the amount I was working out and the amount of stress. Like, let's just call it what it is, the amount of chronic stress from owning a business, from, you know, being up at 4 a.m. every day for 12 years. And it doesn't even have to be that extreme for your nervous system to dysregulate.
mhm.
I probably was able to do it because I was constantly doing it. And it wasn't until COVID hit. I'm in Toronto. My gym was closed for a really long time. I had time to come down. Although it was stressful, it wasn't the same everyday stress. It felt like my body just rejected me, like, was just like, you're done. And all of these crazy symptoms came on all at once.
Mm. It's crazy how hard it hits, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that's what's so important about health is like people think they're doing the right things. You know, they're working out, they're eating good, and like, but things can change so quickly. And so, especially with hiring a coach too, people think, oh, in 3 months, everything's fine. I've learned everything I need to. And it's like, but there's so many different levels to this, right? It's not just losing the weight. That's great. But then you got to reverse out of it. And then let's dive deeper into drainage pathways, detoxification, hormone balance, gut health. You know, let's optimize your vitality. And then so that way your body can handle a lot more of the stressors on day to day. So you aren't quite as affected when something like a, a death in the family happens, or
Right.
something like, you know, if you like, I had a client recently have to get a tetanus vaccine and antibiotics. And it was like, oh, after all this work, but she's handling it a lot better than she's had in the past because her body's in a little bit of a safer space, right? Or a
Right.
health state. So it's
And
like,
probably the knowing of how to support the
yeah,
body, in those times. Yeah, that's helpful, obviously.
yeah.
Holy, yeah, it does hit. And I just wish that people, I know before we hit record, I said this. I get a lot of hate online for my stance on calories in, calories out, and how for women, I'm going to speak for women. If men are metabolically unhealthy, it's not going to work for them either. But for women in this society today, simply calories in and calories out for fat loss is not going to work. And that's what we're here to talk about today. And I get that hate online because this sort of traditional idea that you and I both lived in the gym world, right? It's sort of what we know, it's in the media, it's what's been ingrained in our head is that if we diet more and exercise more,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be in that ideal shape, but it's like truly not happening for women now.
It's not. And I think, I'm going to play a little bit of a different side of the coin here too, because I don't think it's that it can't work. I think
Sure.
it's that it can work for a short period of time until it doesn't.
Sure. Yeah, agreed.
And it's like, if you are very overweight, never worked out a day in your life, then you go and do, CICO for calories in, calories out, move more, you will probably see some really great benefits
Hmm.
right off the bat. And then maybe you drop 100 pounds and that's amazing. But then what happens when your hair starts shedding and when you start experiencing some bad periods and your brain fog's starting to get a little bit wonky, maybe your nails are getting a little brittle. And it's like, then it's like, okay, we have to really support the body more internally too outside of that. But if you've been doing that for a really long time and you're not seeing the results, like probably most of the women we work with, there needs to be a different approach. And that
Yeah.
approach is usually like, liver health, adrenal health, thyroid health, hormones, gut, all of the fun topics.
Yeah. I also think that when people think of calories in and calories out, it's a little bit of a nuanced topic. So, when I'm posting on Instagram that it's not all about calories in, calories out, and I get all that hate, I feel like, in a 10-second reel, I can't necessarily explain everything that I mean by that. When people hear the word calorie, they only think about the food they are taking in and how many calories they are burning when they work out. So they think that equation is simply those two things. I eat
Mm-hmm.
less, I work out more, I should get the thing I want.
Mm-hmm.
Except that calories is just an intake or an expenditure of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And your body, aside from exercise, has metabolic processes that require a certain amount of energy intake in order for them to be optimal. And so then
Mm-hmm.
your output is higher. So if you are not eating just simply to survive, so like women who are eating under 1,200 calories, it is
Mm-hmm.
likely you are not surviving very well. Like your body has adapted because your body
Mm-hmm.
is a miracle, but like it's on low power mode. Let's be honest. And the
Mm-hmm.
first things that are going to go are things like your fertility.
Sex hormones. Yep.
Yep, your sex hormones, your digestion,
Thyroid.
your brain function in terms of like brain fog, cognitive function. These are all the things that are going to slow down because you don't technically need them to survive. Like you do, but it can survive on like low power mode. Whereas, you know, your lungs, your blood pumping, all of that needs to happen all the time. But so you can correct me if I'm wrong. What you do, what I do
Mhm.
is optimize those processes, optimize your liver function, optimize your digestion, optimize your sex hormones, not just for fertility reasons, but like nobody wants PMS or painful periods or irregular periods, right? If you optimize like your survival metabolic processes, your energy output is automatically higher,
Mhm.
which means the calories in, calories out equation still it, it's science. That is accurate, but it means so much more than food and exercise alone.
100%. And I will say too, I think the people that also hate online are the people that haven't ever had to go through severe metabolic adaptation and not having it work, right? The people that
Yeah.
are hating are the ones that maybe they've done it and it's worked. You know what I mean? But when you deal with the women we've dealt with, they're not the ones hating because they're like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
get it now, right? And especially nowadays with calories in, calories out. First of all, how do we know how many calories we're burning? Everybody wears these freaking watches now and or rings and stuff like that. And I it overestimates by I can't remember the exact stat, but like 20 to 30%
Right.
of
As does
calories.
your treadmill and your elliptical.
Yes. So I don't even follow that. But
No.
I was there for a long time where I was like, I burned 500 calories. But people don't understand your basal metabolic rate, which is just your simple amount of calories you burn at rest, not doing anything. And for a lot of these women, it's 1,600 calories.
Right.
And so then you add exercise on top of that, and they're wondering why they can't lose weight. The only time I like using the data is when it goes into our app. I think you probably use the same thing too, is I can just show them firsthand, look, you're burning 2,600 calories, but your nutrition is here at 1,500. Like, this is why we need to reverse diet. We need to close that gap. We need to increase, so like, because people, I don't think understand how many calories they do burn, even if it's more than what they think. Do you know what I mean? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's sometimes helpful to just be like a little more bought into the process of potential metabolic restoration,
Yes.
which is really just a fancy way and marketing way of saying reverse diet. Like, so.
Yeah, let's talk about reverse dieting. I love this. I use this all the time in my practice because what I find is that if I try to tell somebody that they need to be eating, you know, looking at that data, if I say, okay, well, you're burning 2,600 calories a day, but you're only eating 1,200 and you're not losing weight, there's more going on. We need to nourish your body a little bit. We need to make your body feel safe eating this. Well, if I eat any more than that, I gain weight. Okay, well, we're going to do this real slow then. So
Yes.
tell us what reverse dieting is.
Yeah. So reverse dieting, essentially you're bringing up your calories to where your perceived maintenance calories are going to be. And keep in mind your maintenance naturally lowers like as you become what's called metabolically adaptive. So like 1,200 calories might be your quotation new maintenance. We're trying to raise it up to where we really want your calories to be. So let's say your perceived maintenance, and this is really easy to figure out. Like go to tdee.net, like, and then go punch in your stats, and you will be surprised at the number and probably think it's lying to you. But I guarantee most women listening, it's probably close to 2,100 to 2,400 calories a day.
Yeah.
And, so the goal is to kind of try to get a little bit closer to that number. And so you do it slowly, right? Like, if you look at a bagel and immediately gain 10 pounds, like we might need to work on as we're doing this, making sure your blood sugar, stays in check, making sure cortisol stays low. But the way that I like to reverse diet, depending on how low we are, like I'm sure everybody does this a little differently. If we're really low, like I might close the gap kind of quickly at first from like 1,200 to 1,500 and then slowly raise calories like 50 to 100 calories a day or a day. And then every week just increase it by another 50 to 100 calories. So we eventually get to where our maintenance is. And that could take 6 weeks, that could
Yeah.
take 4 weeks, that could take 6 months, depending on a few factors, right? One, how well does your body respond? If you notice you're gaining weight super quickly, one, weight gain during this is not a bad thing. Like I do need to specify that because like some people need to gain a little bit of weight, which I know like scares the shit out of people when I say
Every
that.
woman scares the shit out of
Every
every
woman.
woman.
And it's like, it's okay if you put on like 5 or 10 pounds so you can lose 50 effortlessly. Like, long-term goal here, but like, and not everybody does. I have many women lose weight. I had a client go from 1,200 to 2,600 calories a day, drop 30 pounds,
Hmm.
and then I have some people that gain weight, and it's not that they did it wrong, but if you notice yourself gaining weight like pretty quickly, I just hold back a week, right? Like instead of increasing weight, we just give your metabolism a little bit extra time to start adapting, right? And I think, in my old bodybuilding days, like it was as simple as that. But now with a lot of the women we work with, knowing what I know now, a lot of it's still just honing in on like blood sugar, liver health, hormones, because as you reverse out of, you could also optimize your sex hormones, your thyroid function, things like that. So like, that also mitigates a lot of potential weight gain. I don't know, is that sufficient with
Yeah,
explaining it?
yeah, no, I think that was great. I think that it freaks women out. I have a client right now, a new client, and I don't even think she's eating 1,000 calories a day.
Yeah.
And and she is very, like, my specialty is fat loss, and I have to just keep telling her, just trust the process, trust the process. Like, yes, the scale might go up. Why don't we just throw your scale away? Let's just like go by the way your clothes fit. And we are just like really, really slowly inching up. But I cannot wait. It might take us a couple of months, but I cannot wait for us to get there. And oh my goodness, then, all the other complaints, and I don't mean that in a negative way, just the things she was experiencing are going to subside. Her,
Mhm.
short temper, her like short fuse with her husband, the annoyance factor, the
Mhm.
irritability, the period issues, the sex drive, the like on and on. Yeah, okay, like I know that the weight gain is like the thing you're seeing in the mirror. But like let's look at do you really want to live with all of this and not just like put on 5 pounds for a short term,
Right.
right?
It's so hard because we are ingrained to not believe that more is better.
I
But
know.
something I like to remind people of too, and it's difficult too, I'm not going to lie, in our programs where it's like 3 months, 6 months, you pay for a quotation time. It's really difficult because we want to rush the process to get results. And sometimes we cannot. And no matter what we do, it's just we can't speed up healing. Healing takes
Right.
time, but
And it's
uh,
not linear,
no,
right?
no.
Like through my healing journey, of course there were setbacks. Of course there were things that I uncovered along the way that I was like, oh, I thought I was well on my way to where I needed to be, but bam, something just like showed up. And I was like, okay, I need to address that. But I like kind of feel like that's life. You know what I mean? You're like, life is not linear. You're
No.
not like born and then just like on this path to death. You like left turn, right turn, through your whole life and all of your experiences. And I think that's okay.
100%. I think a question I like to ask women too, especially if they're in like a reverse diet and they're complaining or they're scared. First of all, acknowledge that it's okay. But it's like you also hired us because the things you were doing weren't working, and we are also the professionals. But like, you know, in order to get your body to change, we might have to do something different. And people don't want to believe that more food is going to be the different thing. They think it's some magical liver flush, which we do those too,
Sure.
or some, all this other great stuff. But it's like, truthfully, we can do all the freaking biohacking in the damn world. But if your body's not getting enough nutrients, that's always going to be number one,
Yeah.
And so it's going to constantly live in survival mode. Um, so it's like, sometimes it's like in order to get the results you've never had, we have to do things you've never done, right? um, and this is one of those things, right? And it's not like everybody, but it's probably a good majority of the women that we probably work with are just under eating, maybe overtraining, high stressed, type A, and their
100%.
bodies just, we're used to having a lot of control, and sometimes it's also hard to release some control to somebody else to tell us things that scare the shit out of us
Yeah.
that might
Yeah.
actually work.
Yeah. I was having this conversation with my sister-in-law this weekend, and we were just talking about external stress being one factor. But
Oh
like
God.
society is really hard on women. Like
Mhm.
society is really hard on women. And I think just like living in today's society for
Mhm.
women is a stress. You are expected, or, we put these expectations on ourselves. I'm not saying that like, you're just like walking into it, but you got to be a good mom. You have to be fit. You have to be a great wife. You have to be the glue for your family. You have to have a career. If you don't have a career, and you've decided you're dedicating your time to your family, that's not good enough. Like maybe you should do something more with your life. If you decide to have a career, you're neglecting your family. Like I feel like we are constantly under scrutiny, and we have a constant story in our head that we're
Yeah.
not doing enough. So, this idea of resting or relaxing or taking a different road to health than what we're used to being told is like lazy, right? Or it's not good enough. Or like, I know many women that when I ask them to just sit down,
Mhm.
it's like their brain starts going and all of a sudden they can't. This is like sitting and resting is not a natural state for them.
No, I feel that. That's
I mean, I can totally empathize, but it's almost like I have to override that urge,
Mhm.
right? To like
Mhm.
know that my body needs to feel safe if I need it to be healthy. And if my body is healthy, my family is healthy. If my body is healthy, and my mind included in that, my business is healthy, right?
100%. I think the missing puzzle piece to a lot of this is also nervous system regulation work, right? And
Yeah.
that's one thing I noticed a huge difference when I added in like a whole nervous system course for clients is like, a lot of these women, as you mentioned, it's like they might feel guilty for slowing down, but it's also this need for control.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the things they can control, like workouts, their food, and we get so hyper fixated on it. So it's almost like releasing some of that control. I've literally seen people like do this, just like make the commitment for a few weeks and just lose weight, literally, without doing anything different because they've just let their body like be. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
And
one of
it's
them.
like,
Yeah.
like, no, that can't be the answer. It can't be it. It has to be this supplement or this food or whatever, or low carb. And it's like sometimes it is as simple as that because your body cannot heal in a constant fight or flight state. It just cannot. And I think with nervous system work, especially if you're newer to it, women are so turned off by it because they're like, I don't like meditation. I'm bad at meditation. It's like, okay, well, first of all, you don't have to meditate. Like,
Yeah.
that's not the only way to regulate your nervous system. And honestly, a lot of women, especially women with a lot of trauma or a lot of, and I'm not trauma informed person here, but like they need deeper work. They need the vagal toning. They need deeper methods of nervous system work outside of journaling and meditation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they've tried it before and it hasn't worked. First of all, how long did you do it? Did you do it for like 2 days and you're like, nah, screw this,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But a lot of women need to actually rewire their nervous system through vagal toning exercises, through somatic work, move that energy instead of just sitting with it and ruminating and creating more of a poop loop in their
Yeah.
head, because then it's like you can also figure out what your journey is really about. Because so many women come in, I want to lose weight, I want to have more energy. Those are the two things I'm sure you
I
see
hear a
as
lot.
the two
Yeah.
biggest things that when
Sure.
women come in, right? And that's great. Why? Like, why? And like, what's the deeper reasoning on why it hasn't worked? Is it really because your metabolism's super active, or is there some stuff holding you back much deeper in your subconscious
Right.
that's actually the reason you haven't been able to see the results, and that's a little bit more on the woo woo side here, but like,
No,
you
I love that. That's not
yeah,
woo-woo. That's not woo-woo. You know what? That's real.
it's
It's real. I think a lot of women don't even know they're in fight or flight. A lot of women
no,
don't even know that they're struggling with their nervous system. Um, and I was somebody like that. I was like yeah, I was the person that was like, well, pull up your bootstraps and keep going, until your body said, oh, hell no, Michelle, you're not going anywhere.
yep.
Right? Like your body will tell you. And it wasn't until I learned to calm my nervous system that I
Mhm.
even felt the difference of your parasympathetic nervous system to your sympathetic nervous system. And like
Yes.
knowing that through somatic exercise, I wasn't great at meditation. Like I can do it, but I don't feel like I'm great at it today. But somatic practice, I find getting out of your head and into your body, moving that energy out of your body, and the true difference in the way you feel, the way you talk, the way you breathe, when you are living in that rest or digest or your parasympathetic nervous system is like, it feels like relief.
Yes. You know, I want to tap on that for a second because almost every single person watching this probably or listening to it probably is like, yeah, me, I'm stressed, but I'm not that stressed, you know?
Oh, yeah, that's a
And
good one too.
like, that's because like people can't see my hands, but it's like, your threshold is way higher than the normal person. And so when you get super stressed, it's like 10 times or 100 times what normal should be like, but it's really only 10 times more than where you actually like feel like you are at a certain time. But that's the breaking point, because your body just, you know, has has a certain threshold. It's gonna just say F you. But something, for me, I was that person. I was for a long time. I was so driven, so on the go, especially being at the gym. Like I was
Mhm.
the second highest earner at the gym. I was doing every hour on the hour for 70 hours. Like, I was doing the most. And it was really hard on my body. It was hard on my mind. I would get home at almost midnight, be up at it, in the morning too. And I was like, I didn't think I was that stressed because I was handling it so fine.
Sure.
And when I went through my autoimmune issue, um, I'll make this really short story. After many, many years of being misdiagnosed, I mean, close to 13, and then 2 years of being like in the trenches of not being able to literally walk. It wasn't until I ended up in the ER for the second time that I was like, somebody took me seriously. Um, and I was put on biologics, and that was what I was told was going to be my whole life, was going on biologic drugs. And at the time I was desperate for anything.
Sure.
I was also dealing with horrific gut issues. I didn't have a period at this point for I think 4 years. And doctor said it was normal.
Oh my
You're active, right? Gut issues, skin, horrible fatigue. I mean, I was having 3 shots of espresso, and I like at some point I had 2 scoops of like C4, like the OG
Yeah.
C4, and it still wasn't doing anything. And I didn't think my adrenals were a problem, but that's a different story.
Wow.
But anyways, I won't go down that rabbit hole. But what happened was I was on these biologics for a while, and they did save my life. Okay, and like I am so grateful that I was able to get that medication. I was able to get, at the time it was intravenous. I went in every 6 weeks, and it saved my life at the current time. Now I still felt like crap, but I was able to walk, right? The fatigue was horrific. My gut issues didn't help, my skin, whatever. Hormones still a mess. But I felt better to be able to do my work, my job, and show up. But here's where this is all gonna tie in. And I told you I might bring this up. So when I wanted to look into preconception, which was over a year and a half prior to like wanting to really try, I wanted to get on a medication that I knew was safe for pregnancy. Through the medical system, I had to try and fail 2 or 3 different kinds before getting on this one. And deep in my heart, I knew, I was just like, one, I don't feel like I need this, but two, this still can't, I don't care what the data quotation says. I
Yeah.
just don't believe that this is still good for my body. And there's no shame, again, if anybody's on biologics. It was just what I felt I wanted to get off of them. And through that hell of restarting, doing loading doses, doing all of this for months, nothing worked, actually. Everything stopped working. And then I got the COVID vaccine, and that threw my remission completely out of whack. It was the
Oh
worst
my
inflammation
gosh.
I've ever had for 4 months. um, it wasn't just my hips and my back anymore. I was getting like my knuckle would get to be like a baseball, my
Oh my
finger,
gosh.
my elbow. It was just like every like 2 or 3 days, it was a different joint. It was literally bizarre. And nothing I was doing was working at this point.
Wow.
Like, it was nutso. And I knew in my heart too, but I felt pressure to get it, right? Um, and I was I was just really, really sick. So anyways, I tried to keep this short,
Yeah,
but
no, it's fine.
July 4th, I had a trip planned to Smoky Mountains, which is a place I always wanted to hike. And at the time, I was so inflamed. I didn't think we were going to make it like to there. And I was like, I don't want to cancel the trip. I'm going to feel better. I'm going to get off. Like the medications weren't working. I wanted to get completely off it. I don't want to try anything more. I wanted to feel better. I wanted to take my root cause approach. Like I knew what
For
to do.
you.
I just really had to hone in on it because I was doing the right things, right? And I ended up feeling better, working on stuff, going to the Smokies. And then when I came back from the Smokies, in the Smokies, I was able to hike. I was feeling the best I had felt in 5 or 6 months. And when I came back, I was still feeling pretty good. I was like, fuck, it's stress.
Yes,
And it's like
yes.
I needed to have that moment where I knew after coming back from that trip, I was never going to touch a biologic again. I was going to actually start working on my nervous system regulation. I was going to like actually start taking this serious. And I was like, I don't know how, because at this time too, I was a business owner. I had started my own business. I was rapidly scaling. I was hiring and firing. At the time I was hiring like 3 or 4 people. Like it was a lot. And like, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I need to make the commitment to do it. I've never looked back. I've never had another biologic or drug or anything like that. But it was like, that moment for me, I almost needed the tangible where it was like, yes, stress, blah, blah, blah. But like, until it hit me, it's like, okay, I
Like
hear
hit
you.
you again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take this seriously now.
You know what? I'm with you. Again, healing is not linear. So I went through my healing journey a long time before I conceived, got pregnant, had my son, life is good. And then we decided we were going to move out of the city. And so we put our house for sale. So we put our house for sale with having, I think he was maybe 10 months at the time. So he was like walking and, we had a dog she's not well. So she's like just a little bit more care. And we were in and out of our house multiple times a day, not to
Yeah.
mention keeping it perfectly tidy. And then eventually we were moving. And through all of that, I I kind of let go of my nervous system work.
Mhm.
And fast forward to today, we're now in our new house and all the things, and things I can feel it in my body much more calm. However, I did some hormone testing. I ran a Dutch test on myself, and my hormones were like postmenopausal levels.
Oh no.
Like, and I was like, oh, okay, stress. Oh, yep,
Uh,
okay. And so I was like, I really need to take this seriously too. Again, I needed to like, kind of conjure up the energy because at that point I was like totally drained again from like 6 months of this, like just really go, go, go again. And I think I've been working maybe since August. So like just a few months and feel 1,000 times better already.
oh
So
my
like
gosh.
it really does work.
Can we talk about labs for a hot second here? Because like
Uh,
as a very logical brained woman, I feel like sometimes a lot of our clients need to see the data to
yes.
show that their body is indeed under stress, because we can say like, oh, let's work on nervous system, and people literally will tell me every day, but I'm not stressed yet. And there's almost like contentiousness too, like where you can like I can feel when clients are like very stressed, right? But then
Yeah,
they
of
keep telling me
course.
they're not. I get it. I literally was there too. But sometimes when we run, like all of our clients get an HTMA, but a lot of our clients will run a Dutch or an oat or something like that. But like, on the HTMA, it's like we can actually see how your body is dealing with that stress. And everybody has a different capacity. It's true. Like I can handle stress more than like my sister. Like
Right,
there's no doubt about that, but that still doesn't mean it's good for me and that I should like use that as a badge of honor.
right.
But I remember, when we run some of these labs, it's like, okay, like they'll just run, like if you go to a normal doctor and they run like cortisol 24 hours, it's not gonna, unless it's so high or so low, it's not gonna give you really any data.
Right.
You can actually see your cortisol numbers on a Dutch, but like even on an HTMA, it's like, how is your body and your thyroid and your sex hormones and all that playing in to the stress that your body has?
Right.
And it is a bit of an eye opener, even if it's just as a little bit more buy-in almost to like do a reverse diet, you know?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like sometimes we need that permission, and something a little more quantifiable, which is why like I love functional labs. We had talked a little bit on like, things like bioresonance scans that I'm doing to have that, like, to be able to quantify a little bit on what's going on internally, right?
A
So,
100%. And I also feel like not just internally, energetically, right?
yes.
The resonance scans that you're doing, or even the HTMA, it has like an energetic element to
Hmm.
it,
Yeah.
right? No, I fully agree. I run functional labs on myself every year.
Hmm.
I just like to see what's going on. I feel like looking for optimal health is like not the finish line, because I
Mm,
don't think we can like truly get there in terms of numbers. Like, are like, you know what I mean? Like, are we smack on the dot of this
yeah.
bacteria in your gut? No, like that's not how it works. But can we live like a very optimally healthy life because, we're 90% of the way there or whatever that number is for you, in terms of optimal health. But I find that running functional labs with my clients or with myself, it's like almost like a guiding light. The
Mhm.
data, it means so much in our society, right? It's like the scale
Yeah,
versus how you feel. Like you still want to see the number. You know what I mean? It is not the defining factor, but for the way our brains are wired, it's like that, like, okay, I see that there's some work that needs to be done here.
totally.
I love that. I love functional labs. I mean, obviously there's it's a huge part of my practice and I think that it's really important. But a caveat to that is that they are not as important as the
Oh my
foundations,
God, yeah.
right?
That yeah, 100%. That's why I only include like an HTMA and not some of the like because they're expensive, you know? I
They
mean,
can
they are
be,
an
yeah.
investment, all right? Even that cost, like, and it's like so many people want to run like a Dutch because they saw about it on the internet. And I'm like, but like if you're, waking up at 4 a.m., you're high stress, you're not eating right, like let's work on the foundations and then go test this because chances are I already know what your numbers are gonna probably look like. Like,
100%.
not always, right? I mean, there's some things that, especially let's take cortisol, you can present very similar to high and low cortisol, but like, I think it is important to take that foundations first approach. But I'm
Yeah.
also going to kind of tap on one other thing that I think is kind of important is achieving optimal health. And can't see my fingers like quotation marks because it's like, I think sometimes many people swing the opposite way and they get so hyper fixated on wanting to fix everything and wanting the most optimal health. And like, I call myself like almost like a realistic biohacker because like that is like, we can do that, but at some point, that's also a trauma response.
Yes.
And that's also negatively affecting you. So it's like, can we find a healthy balance? Because if we're constantly striving for more and more and more, well, first of all, we're never going to feel enough. Our body's
No.
going to literally feel like, we're constantly failing ourselves. But it's never going to create that safe space, and how do you know when you've reached that optimal health? Because even if, let's say you made it, let's say you're at the top of the freaking mountain, you've made it, everything's so great. And then let's say you need an antibiotic
Right. Or a loved one
or a
dies,
loved
you
one
lose your
passes,
job.
dog, something, car accident, knock on, these things can trigger sometimes a freaking cold or a flu,
Yes.
is going to trigger it. And then suddenly you take a few steps. I don't want to say back, but like, our body needs to heal again. So it's like, there's no end goal necessarily. And I think again, sometimes goal set with clients, we have a specific amount of time a client works with us, something like that. It's like, it's hard because we do want a goal set. We do want to reach some sort of goal, but sometimes people don't realize how far they've also gotten.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
I agree. I agree. We use in my practice, we use like a symptom checker. So it
oh,
has
cool.
nothing to do with weight loss or weight gain. We just like go
Oh, cool.
through, I think there's like 50 different symptoms on there. And, most on a scale of 1 to 10, or 1 to 5, where are you? And then we do them monthly to watch the numbers of like what you're experiencing in terms of chronic symptoms, how they are diminishing so that we can see them in a different way as well to just like create value around more than just fat loss
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because it's important.
It's always so funny. Sometimes when I'm on like I guess like an exit call, like wrapping things up at the end of their program or, just going back into what, like where they were like, oh my God, like, wait, what? I forgot that was a thing. Like one of our, like a recent client, like was having horrible night sweats, and like headaches almost every day. And it was like, sure, she's lost a little weight. Her energy's a little better, but I was talking about like, Anne, like, I haven't heard anything about your night sweats. She's like, oh my God, I forgot that was even a thing. And that had ravaged her for years. And it was
Yeah.
just gone. And the headache, she's just like, wait, I didn't even realize that was a part of my life until you just brought that up because it's just
Yeah.
gone.
I also just wish that, like, maybe you and I have such an extreme story in terms of chronic symptoms. I was like struggling with like 50 different symptoms at any given time, like
Yeah.
your autoimmune condition, that flare up, and like the symptoms you were experiencing. People might listen to this or, look at your Instagram page or my Instagram page and think, oh, like they had something like crazy going on. Like I don't have that. But then when you kind of get talking to them and they're, if you talk about their bowel movements, oh yeah, yeah, I'm regular. And then it comes out that, oh, it's like soft. It's like soft. They're like struggling with diarrhea actually, but it's regular.
3 times a
Or
week. That's normal.
right, right. Or, that headache that they have every day. They've like just considered it normal. Or, the food cravings or the
Mhm.
PMS, the irritability, that kind of stuff. Or let's just even call a spade a spade. If
Mhm.
you are eating less than you're burning, calories
Mhm.
in, calories out, and you are not losing weight, something else is going on. The symptoms can be so subtle. They might
Yes.
not be smacking you in the face like they smacked me in the face or like they smacked you in the face, Shannon, but maybe that's why we were meant to do this path and we were meant to lead people here.
100%.
But like you said, the woman you were working with, her headache or her night sweats, just like things that happened to her and they were complaints at the time, but they were subtle enough that she didn't even realize they were gone.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
want people to recognize that when people say, "Oh, like no, I'm fine." Oh, like no, I don't experience any of that. Like let's just really see because if you're not experiencing any of that, you're probably really freaking healthy.
Dude, I think the biggest thing is the fact people do not realize how bad they feel until they feel better. And like I know that was me for literally years. I was surviving. I thought I was doing great. Like,
Hmm.
and then I felt what it felt like to feel good. And I was like, okay, I
Yeah,
didn't feel good.
I
But
was
no
not
one
feeling
had
good.
convinced me otherwise. That was what I knew. And as a society, we normalize. I'm low energy. I'm bloated, my bad PMS. Like all of that is very normal, right? And especially if you're a mom, oh, it's just you're a working mom. Of course you're tired. Of course you can't get rid of some extra belly fat. And it's like we're just kind of and then it makes us seem like we don't have control of ourselves
Right.
and that all this is normal. And we almost like subconsciously give up because we think
Yeah.
like this is just the way I'm gonna be,
Right.
you know?
Why
So
suffer?
I guess.
Shannon and I are here to tell you that those tiny little symptoms that you're just like, oh, well, it's just me. It doesn't have to be.
I,
If you could wave a magic wand to your bloated, client or friend or mother or whoever and say, I can get rid of that for you, or we can get rid of that, do you think they'd say, no, 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 it's just me?
oh no. Yeah.
Right.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And I will say though, I think on the opposite side of the spectrum, people I know have looked at me before and they have thought, what do you know about my problems? What do you know about the struggle? You're young, you're fit, you're in shape,
Mm,
you do this for a living. A lot of people don't even know my story, and I think it's easy to look at you too. You're gorgeous, you're in shape, you are thriving in motherhood. And it's like, but that's not always the whole story. And sometimes people, I think, I know sometimes there's a guard up when I talk to women where they're like, what do you know about my struggles?
but what do their
What,
doctors know?
well, it's not even about like being, having a doctor versus a health coach. It's more just like when somebody hires somebody, I hate to say this, they want you to know what to do, but they also just want to know that you know what it's like to feel the
Of
way they feel.
course.
And it's like, when I talk to people too, it's like they're like, oh my God. They're like, I had no idea. Thank you. I feel seen. I feel heard. I feel understood.
Yes. Yes, fair. Okay. I thought you were going to go down a different way, but like,
Oh, I
yes.
could go down that way too, but I'm not, we don't have the time for that. So
Yes, I agree with you. People want to know that you have also experienced similar issues for sure. You need to be relatable because it's probably something that women have been dealing with a lot of their life. And it wasn't until I found my health coach that took me down this path that I
yeah.
was like, "Oh my God, I see myself in your old you before you healed." Right? And that made a big difference because again, my doctor was like, eat better. And I'm like, okay, lady, I'm probably the cleanest eater on the planet.
I was told by my rheumatologist that my diet wouldn't matter. I said, "What if I went gluten-free? I think that might help." And she goes, "There's no data on it. It's not really probably going to help. You can try it."
I love the
Um,
no data. That's like the default.
yeah.
The
I'm like,
default
"Okay,
answer.
well, I'm gonna try it anyways.
Yeah.
I think oh God, well, I
We could go
tried
down a rabbit hole.
stuff with like, well, and this is not even like medical system. When I tried to heal myself, I did all of the food restrictions. I did autoimmune protocols, like very, very strict. I did low FODMAP. I did SIBO diets. I did Candida diet. And at one point I was eating 5 foods a day, and everything else I became reactive to. I
Oh
was
my
having chronic
gosh.
diarrhea, I was having chronic gas, I was having chronic bloating, and I was like, but I'm only eating 5 foods, 6 foods a day at this point. And I think that's another side of the coin. It's like, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to heal this with my diet. And I
Mm-hmm.
tried and I got sicker. And that's
Mm.
what, like, some people will preach like food is everything, and it is to an extent. But my missing component was, one, I had severe issues with my gut. Like my GI map was the worst that the doctor had ever seen. Literally, he was like, I know you're an overachiever, Shannon. This is the worst I've ever seen. Um, I'll never forget those words. Um, and I felt a sigh of relief, like, okay, I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
Like, but like once I worked on my gut, my minerals, my stress levels, then I could heal, right?
Oh, can we just bring that full circle for a second?
Yeah.
You and I work with women who want fat loss at the surface,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
then we dig in and then we realize that it is not all about calories in, calories out. It is not
Mhm.
always this traditional style of losing weight. What you just said, when you started balancing your minerals, when you started healing your gut, when you started managing your stress levels, everything came together.
Yep.
It's working on the underlying issue. And then when you do the diet and the exercise properly, the results are invaluable.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Beautiful, nice tie in there.
Oh, I just wish that I could scream that from the rooftops and have women have it be like an aha moment for women because I know it's hard. I know it's hard to wrap your head around this idea of like the somatic exercise, like tapping and stuff. Like, I get that that feels weird and it is weird. But guess what? Your nervous system doesn't, you can't think yourself out of your nervous system dysregulation.
Yep.
You can't just tell yourself you're not stressed because your
Nope.
nervous system knows better and your nervous system works in frequency and feeling. You have to
Well,
do
it's
that
also its
stuff.
main goal is to keep you safe. So of
Yeah,
course it's going to tell you you're okay. You
right.
know, it wants to keep you safe on its core level. So I think
Yeah.
that's understand too. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways, to heal your body to achieve that ultimate goal of vitality, weight loss, for, pregnancy, whatever that looks like. But ultimately, it's always going to come down to the same main things. It's going to come down to not only your nutrition, but are you absorbing in the nutrients that you're actually consuming?
Right.
Gut health, liver, hormones,
Yeah.
adrenals. It's all gonna kind of tie in. And as you said, like, yes, once all of that is working a little bit more optimally, and it doesn't have to necessarily be hard. Like, I know when I say this, it seems overwhelming, where it's like, oh God, I don't even know where to start. Um, but then once you go into a little bit more quotation basic work,
Hmm.
nutrition, you know, a cut, whatever, it works effortlessly.
It
You
works effortlessly. Oh, yes. I use that word a lot and people are like, I don't understand what this effortless weight loss is. I
know,
also
because I've never had it.
Right, right. I also use the word permanent, and I'm very clear that you can achieve permanent fat loss if you work on underlying causes.
Mhm.
Hey, let's get your liver function, you know, optimal again in quotation marks here, but like, is your liver functioning well, or is it just surviving in your body? Because it does a lot of work for your metabolism.
It's like
And
30%, I think, 27.
right,
They're like that it actually affects your metabolism. Like, and you
it's
want to
in
know
there
how much
converting your cortisol, it's in there converting your thyroid hormone, it's in there converting all of your sex hormones are in your liver and its functions like anyway. I could go on, but I think you need to tell us, Shannon, where people can find you.
Yeah, well, my Instagram is shannon.salgi, Salge. My Facebook, Shannon Salgi. I've got a really great Facebook community. It's the holistic women's health and fitness community over on Facebook. Um, and those are probably the two best places to find me. I have a I don't know if you want to post. I have a really great quiz. It's a metabolic and hormone harmony quiz. So if anybody wants to take that, figure out like maybe you're listening and you're like, I don't think my metabolism or hormones messed up, and go take my quiz.
But maybe it is. Yeah, maybe it is.
Maybe it is, and it'll give you some steps to help it that are very small and actionable, not overwhelming.
Amazing.
Baseline, but yeah.
Maybe you could send me that link and I'll make sure that it's in the show notes too.
Sure.
Okay, amazing. Well, Shannon, I feel like we could talk forever, but at some point I have to wrap it up. So, A, you've told me where we can find you, and B, I just want to thank you for coming on today. And I think that I would like to have you back and maybe we can chat about it after.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
If you're looking for more information on how you can work with me, you can head to my website at www.michellescarlett.com or find me over on Instagram at michellescarlett_. And this information will also be provided in the show notes.